What are your biggest dating regrets from your 20s? How did they impact or shape you today? What valuable lessons did you learn? Wasting too much time on the wrong men because I was scared of being left on the shelf. Growing up, it was drummed into me that I had to be married by X age and have children by X age, even though I didn't actually want children. I was just prepared to have them because that's what I thought people did. So I wasted bloody years on shitty men. Then I met an old work colleague. She was 5 years older than me and I got my life mantra from her: I'd rather be single and happy than together and miserable, and I've never looked back. I own my own business, I own my own home, I am financially independent. A man is a nice to have at this point in my life. I have high standards and I don't lower them for anyone anymore. Staying too long in that one wrong relationship. I knew it wasn't made to last halfway through. What a bunch of wasted time. Giving people chances because they're such a nice guy. If the spark isn't there, it isn't there. All time did was make apparent the reasons why the spark wasn't there in the first place. Sacrificing time with friends to spend time with so's. The so's are gone now. My friends are still around and I hope they'll always be around. I could have made so many more memories with them. Letting myself be pressured into sex I didn't want to have so I wouldn't seem impolite or like I was just leading someone on. I regret not dating enough, not realizing that quality men would completely disappear shortly after. That I cheated and hurt so many people. In my 30s now and I'm deeply ashamed of how I've treated most of my exes in my 20s. Giving a cheating boyfriend a second chance. Never again. Cheat once and I'm gone for good. Don't even want to hear apology. Continuing to casually see someone because they're nice but the sexual, emotional chemistry is non-existent. No more of that, it's a waste of time. Giving fuckboys my time, attention when they don't reciprocate. Took 2 years for me to finally let one fuckboy go. It was either I see him when he was free or I don't see him at all. Sleeping with a guy on a first date. Had 2 experiences that led to sexual assault. Now I will wait at least 3 dates in to decide. The guy who showed up in dirty flip-flops. Should have just ended the date right there. It would be either him, or the guy who thought he was a secret ninja for the military. Sometimes the stories from my 20s are fun, other times not so much. Can I say all of it? Lowering my standards. Being the cool girl because I thought I wasn't worth basic respect. To everyone in their 20s, if someone leaves you because you want respect, then they are not worth it. It's better that they leave you early on than put up with months of ghosting, triangulation and basically being picked up and dropped. Secondly, no one is that in love with you that they can't bear for you to spend any time with anyone else or on your own. They will end up abusive. Tip: find out who you are and what you want. It's better to be lonely because you are on your own than lonely in a relationship. Mostly my early 20s, because I wised up towards the end of my 20s. But the idea that I needed a partner at all. If it happens, cool. If not, also cool. You don't need a romantic partner to be happy. And if you do, then you need a therapist, not a romantic partner. Also, sex does not equal love. Or even like. Just because a guy has sex with you, even regularly, doesn't mean he gives a rat's ass about you. I spent way too much time going on shitty dates with shitty men just because I felt like I should and because I was so insecure that I believed I didn't deserve better. In retrospect, I think I would have been happier staying at home writing or reading or hanging out with friends than hooking up with random men who asked me 0 questions about myself and didn't even make me come. Giving selfish partners too many chances. Not speaking up more about things that made me uncomfortable or angry. Sticking around for a lot longer than I should have because I wanted to make things work even though I knew they wouldn't. That happened in my teenage years though as well. Don't date people who are like double your age. Ever. I broke up with a guy the first really liked because of depression and homesickness. I did it by text after he rented a suit for my work event. I am so sorry. Edit, I learned that I was an asshole and it is one of those things that I will always regret. He was a great guy. Doing the right thing. Going to college, getting married to my first serious boyfriend, getting the career, buying a nice house in the suburbs, all in that order. I didn't live for myself not 1 minute. I lived to please other people and did what I thought you were supposed to do. My regret is not dating more women. I dated more men than women in my 20s. Been changing that in my 30s lol. Getting drunk on a date. Choosing dates that I knew were not good for me. Loving too hard, loving so hard I was scared of letting go. It's unhealthy. I was married at 23, and while I don't necessarily regret it because it shaped who I am now, it made me off the market to meet so many other people. He ended up having an affair and tore my family apart. Now I'm 27, divorced, back on the market and starting over. It was scary. I thought that men would view me as damaged goods. I was very inexperienced with dating also. The thing I did right, however, was taking time to heal from one relationship before moving on to the next. Now I'm very happy with my boyfriend who doesn't judge my past. I was definitely Miss Fix-It and it's something I want to leave behind. I have had a tendency to lean into more of a parent than a partner role and not have my partner be able to stand on their own. I should have been more firm and not be a yes girl just for the sake of impressing a guy and hoping he'd like me more. I remember he texted me at 9 p.m. to come hang out with him and his friends. I was already showered and in bed. Here I am texting him back, sure, even though deep down I wanted to say no. I hated being a people pleaser and a doormat, that's what I would have changed, grow a damn spine. I do regret wasting 6 years in a roller coaster relationship with a guy who ended up being a narcissist and left me for someone else even though they have since broken up. I was so desperate to be with him and couldn't imagine life without him. Now I'm laughing at myself for being such an idiot lol. Messed around with a guy old enough to be my father. Unfortunately did this 2 separate times before I finally met my husband who's only 6 years older than me rather than 20+ years. I'm still only 23, and it finally just recently clicked in my head those encounters were actually creepy. What was I thinking, seriously? I started dating at the age 22. I am 26 atmospheres. My biggest regret is losing my virginity to someone who did not take seriously what I told him, that I was a virgin. He hurt me twice, I bled for days after them because there was no foreplay and he then humiliated me for bleeding on his sheets. My biggest regret that I let it happen. I kept quiet until he dumped me 2 weeks later, days before my 23rd birthday. Yeah, never keep quiet something like that. Staying with a guy just because I was scared no one else would ever want me. I spent 2026 with him and really missed out on a lot of fun experiences in my 20s. That I dated my ex, sad face. Arguing with myself by saying, well, I'm not perfect either, so I can't expect them to be, as I'm beaten and robbed blind tears of joy. Not knowing the signs of narcissistic and borderline personality disorders, or even that these disorders existed, frankly. I was so perplexed by one ex's behavior because I had no idea that he might in fact be psychologically disordered. After discussing him with a therapist, the therapist said it sounded like he had BPD. People with BPD and NPD tend to follow patterns in relationships, starting with love bombing and future faking and progressing into devaluation and discard. If you aren't familiar with these types of disordered personalities and behavior patterns, it's easy to be fooled by the love bombing and mistake it for actual love, which it is not. You will end up with a broken relationship, a broken heart, and no closure. Staying with a guy even though he pushed me to let us be open or have group sex when I wasn't okay with it, flirted with my friends, texted and Snapchatted girls from Tinder while on a date with me, constantly pointed out attractive women in public, made it clear how much he liked my friends, stood over me and screamed at me while I cried and hid in the corner of my closet. Also, I cleaned for him and his roommate, did their dishes, scrubbed their fucking bathtub, and swept his bedroom floor with a broom to get some hair out of the carpet because he didn't own a vacuum but his carpet was nasty. I do not know what was wrong with me and pick me desperate for love self, but I will never be that girl again. Mostly I regret how selfish I acted. I burned some people out of sheer carelessness. I look back now and wonder what the hell my problem was. Lol, caused a lot of unnecessary problems for both myself and others. Happy to say I have improved a lot as I've gotten older though, and I continue to strive for improvement each passing day. Not dating at all. The fault was my poor mental health, but the clock is still ticking. Now I got to look myself in the mirror and be like, I completely understand if a guy looks at me and thinks I want babies and a ring automatically. Then they run away because if they wanted that they would have gotten it when they were younger. Not having enough meaningless casual sex. Believing what people were saying instead of what they were doing. Talk is easy, but people who follow through are a rare breed. None. Everything was a lesson I needed to learn and I didn't make any permanent mistakes. Now I'm 35 in a great relationship, but I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't learned so much in my 20s. Super glad I never got married and never got close to getting married. They were all the wrong person. Not having any. Looking for someone who shared the same point of view of the world as I did. Very negative. It just kept me in that frame of mind and engulfed me. Wasting time in the wrong relationships because I felt too guilty ending things. Sticking with one abusive partner too long and marrying another woman facepalming. From my LTR of almost 6 years, you shouldn't change who you are to become more compatible with the other person because you will only lose yourself in the process. From my STR of 5 mallions and that it's still very fresh and I'm too freaking hurt, even if you're you and have your shit together and all of that, even if you put your heart and soul into the relationship, if the other person doesn't want to put theirs as well, it's best to let go as soon as possible. It freaking sucks and it won't be your fault, but it's just best to move on because someone will put their soul and heart on the line for you. At least I hope so. I was in a relationship for 3.5 years in my late teens, early 20s. 1.5 of those years I didn't want to be in it anymore but stayed because I was afraid I'd never find someone who loved me as much. So much wasted time I wish I could get back. Staying in a 6-year relationship. Should have ended it 2 years prior. Granted, I've never been someone who's dated very much and I met my husband soon after college. However, before I met him, I learned through several not-so-great experiences, having some realistic standards and being firm with my boundaries are important. I'm 26 now, have a lot of regrets when it comes to dating. Mostly the fact that I dated at all to begin with. I have had incredibly shitty partners who have fucked with my head a lot. It really sucks because I would like to be in a relationship one day, but I really doubt that with my history of trauma from my father and the head games a lot of men have played on me and the pandemic taking away years of my social life, that I will ever be in a relationship. I'm kind of in the process of coming to terms with the fact, because I'm just making myself miserable feeling hopeful about any of it. Settling. I shouldn't set the bar too low. Not dating and being more okay with being single. You put so much energy into finding someone and then so much energy into the relationship. I wish I had put that energy into me. Investing in people based on how much I liked them and not how much they were investing back in me. Thanks for the 2020 Matthew Hussey. Sympathy sex. Not discussing with my college boyfriend about needing him to give me some space. I really wanted to study abroad in Ireland for a J-term and he guilted me into not going. For those who aren't familiar, J-term is where some schools allow you to take one class intensively in January. Some students use it to take an actual class they need, but there's also a lot of just for fun classes that are offered. It also is a great time to study abroad. It's literally just 3 weeks. Ignoring red flags and my intuition. I don't always need closure. I put an emphasis on it and took it personal when I didn't get enough communication with men. I'm not going to pull teeth for communication. The right ones have been persistent and patient.